Welcome back, traders and investors, to Benzinga's pre-market prep, brought to you by MarketFi. I'm your co-host Joel Elconin, along with Brianna Valesky, and we have Roberto Pedone on the line. He's the CEO of Zero Sum Trading. He also runs a MarketFi product. Roberto, how you doing on this Friday?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Looking forward to the long weekend. May have a rough day ahead of us, though. Tell us a little bit about your background in the markets.
Yeah, my background, I've been trading individual equities since, you know, uh, pretty much since the dot com bust, and my focus has always been, not so much on trading the indexes or anything to that nature. Although, I do it once in a while, but my forte is swing trading and scalping, and what I like to do is I like to hack the charts.
What is your time frame for your swing trades?
It varies. It all depends on, what I'm seeing. It can be anything from, a few weeks to months. If something's really working and, it's closing at highs and, I really like the way it's acting. I like the volume patterns. I like the way it's holding trend lines. I'll stay with it for months if I think it's going to continue to move.
You think you're more apt to get out like on a trailing stop, or do you go into a lot of your trades with hard targets?
I don't really like to use hard targets, and it's funny because people are always asking me for targets, and I kind of laugh and I'm like, listen, targets are subjective. So, I have no idea exactly where a stock's going to go. I can look at a chart and see past resistance points and use those as guides, or do measured moves, or however you want to do it. But I'll trail it up. I'll trail it up, and I'll try to scale it as best I can, and try to capture as much of that trend as I can.
Yeah, that's a great answer because, like a stock like Netflix, if you had a target in it, who knows how much farther it could have gone, or as opposed to moving your stop up. I think that's a great philosophy to have. So
Exactly.
you focus on technical analysis for small and mid cap stocks, large caps, and then options are actually derivatives of those, and commodities. Now, do you use the same method of technical analysis across the board, or do you find different things work better with, let's say, stocks as opposed to commodities?
I don't trade a whole lot of commodities unless I'm like trading the ETFs and stuff. So, I don't know why that was in my bio, but whatever. Obviously, I track them, of course, because I use them to, trade off of, the small and mid caps, oil, for instance. But, some things do work across the board and other things don't. One of the great things about, small caps and micro caps is, when volume shows up, it's so apparent, especially when you're getting block trades, and you just don't get that, as much with large cap stocks. So, when I see that, and then I see a confluence of other events and other, technical analysis tools that I use that are either triggering or, showing me something, that's the kind of stuff I look for. And then, what I do is I like to take it one step further and try to figure out and decipher the psychology behind the charts, so I can get into the heads of the smart money and try to figure out what they're doing, and anticipate what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially, in stocks nowadays to see where the big volume moves are, and with the options, of course, you should see the change in the open interest. Let's talk about your specific, mode of technical analysis, or your candlestick, bar chart. What time frames do you like to look at? Do you get in there with all the fancy RSI and stochastics, momentum indicators, or do you like to keep it simple?
I always like to say that I like to keep it simple. Price and volume, nothing trumps that. But there are a number of technical tools that I absolutely love. That like I said before, I like to see a confluence of either those things are hitting in ways that I like. For instance, I love RSI. I really love the ultimate oscillator. That's like one of my favorite momentum indicators, and especially if I see the ULT and the RSI doing something at the same time. I love the accumulation distribution line. I love the MACD. So, there's a number of things that I found over time seem to give me an edge, and at least give me a higher probability in my trades. And it's just a piece. So I'm taking those pieces I'm looking at, the chart from the previous time frames. I love to take, pull my charts back, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, bring it back and into shorter time frames like 3 months, 6 months, and then I'm looking at volume patterns. And then the other thing I absolutely love to do is to look at which hedge funds are involved in the stocks that I'm trading. And I love to find out who the hot hedge funds are at the moment and see if they're involved in any of the names.
How do you do
If, you know,
that? Do you go through the filings and things like that, or what's your method for finding out what the big boys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I go through the filings. There's an awesome website called Insider Monkey, and you can literally look up any of the big hedge funds. Let's say for instance the Baker boys in biotech. They're one of the best right now. They're really hot right now. I can pull up all of their holdings. I can see if they've increased or decreased positions, and of course I know those filings are 45 days old. However, that's when I apply the rest of the methods I use with technical analysis to see if I can get some kind of edge, to raise the probability of my trades.
You mentioned a hot hedge fund here. I think you mentioned Baker Brothers, whoever. Who are
Yeah,
who are some of the other ones that you would consider hot? And do you also keep an eye on the short interest in the issues you're trading?
absolutely. Share structure is just as important as all those other things I mentioned. So, for instance, I love lower float stocks. If you get some of these really hot hedge fund managers taking big stakes in these equities, and of course, I'm going to love if I see a high short interest because that's just going to exacerbate the moves if they do end up ripping. Of course, anything can happen, and shorts aren't stupid; they're there for a reason. But absolutely, so I'm always looking at share structure, looking at what the float is, looking at have they done any offerings, do they have any shelves out there, looking at all that stuff.
Okay, you mentioned scalping here, and boy, Dennis and I had our days of scalping. When you traded, and I am actually old enough to have traded in eights and then teenies there, and boy, it was a whole different ball game before we went to decimals. Talk about your scalping. What charts do you use? What time frames? Do you like try and scalp the hot stocks of the day? Are there certain staple of stocks that you go to scalp? Let's talk about your scalping strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, it's going to be names that have PRs and they're moving off those PRs. Sometimes it's going to be names that, I've already gathered and put together on my watch list that were already, hitting on certain technical things that I was looking at, or I saw really, bullish volume patterns, or I saw, potential for breakouts. So I look for that type of stuff, and or if I see one sector going off, or I see, one theme going off in the market. One interesting thing we've had happen here lately, as this market's been, crashing, is all these penny stocks, and I'm not talking about like OTC stocks. I'm talking about ones that trade on the Nasdaq or the NYC. They've all just been blowing up, these really oversold penny stocks. So I'll look for things like that. When you traded, these micro caps and small cap names for so long, you literally it's like them automatically. I know each one in each sector for the most part. I almost know what the floats are on most of them. So when I see themes like that going off, I'm definitely looking at that stuff. When it comes to time frames, I like to use 5-minute charts for entries, and then I really like to use 15 and 60-minute charts to better shape up the trend as I see that stock develop on the day if it goes off. Because if it does go off and I have a good entry, I want to stay with that trend as long as I can. So I'll bring the time frame out a little bit longer, maybe 15 minutes and even 60.
Okay, let's talk about your product, zero sum trading. I mean, is this for someone that's just new into the markets and they want to learn from scratch, or is this for somebody that has some kind of markets, been trading, maybe hasn't been a whole lot of success, or do you really need a really solid long term knowledge to make use of your product?
I really, really, really like to pride myself with my product that everybody can get something out of my product. And it's really interesting, too, because I have people that are complete beginners in trading, I have one guy that's worked on Wall Street for like, I don't know, 15 years or something. I mean, he showed me his LinkedIn profile. I was like, wow, I was shocked that he signed up for my product, you know, and flattered for that matter. But, listen, it's for everybody because the type of technical analysis that I do, I really think I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel because, I think that's pointless. I'm not trying to, come up with a whole new process or strategy that's just like, nobody can understand this. So, but what I do is I think it's very unique and original, and it's not that hard to teach to people, and especially when they see, how I come up with my watch list, and I go over, all the steps I'll use in my process to find ideas, and then after that, it's managing risk, and it's psychology. You guys, I'm sure know that more than anybody. Those are the two most important things in trading that nobody, or not nobody, but a lot of people don't really focus on anymore.
Yeah, the psych. Well, we talk about it all the time. Roberto
Yeah,
Pedone,
you guys do.
CEO of Zero Sum Trading. Here, we're going over his strategies. Let's just talk about options here. And I see that you do make use of the options market. Is this something when you want a little bit longer term play? Or do you like the leverage in the stock, the options? Do you do the weekly options? Do you go far out? Are you a seller at premium? How do you make use of the options markets?
I don't do any spread trading. I'm not like a seller or anything to that nature. So, most of what I do is going to be derived around trend trading. So if I use options, it's either because, I want the leverage. I see, there could be an event coming up and I want to, risk less capital. For instance, if there's a biotech stock that's coming up and they have a major, meeting with the FDA and it's for, a phase 3 drug or something, and I want leverage into that event, but I don't want to, just own the equity because I know anything can happen. I'll do stuff like that. Or if, I see a really nice trend setting up, something like Twitter, just for example, and I want to speculate that way. So I'll trade them, for direction. That's usually what I'm going to do.
All right. Well, you brought up Twitter here, and I got a lot
My
of
favorite company.
It is.
Absolutely. I love Twitter. I don't understand why people don't love the company Twitter, besides the fact that, management's horrible.
That's a good point. All right. Well, we talk about it a lot, and I got a lot of egg on my face in this one, and a lot less money in my pocket. No, I've managed it pretty well. What do you think here? I mean, you want a head and shoulders bottom off that crazy low at 21. What are you looking at technically? Why would you say, that there's any positive thing to say about this stock?
Just from a pure sentiment standpoint, it's gotten ridiculous. It's like everybody hates it. And, I use, Twitter every single day. I use it for, tons of reasons, whether I'm doing research on equities or I'm tweeting out, what I'm doing or, whatever it is. I just absolutely love Twitter. It's a data gold mine. And it's like the best search engine in the world. Like, I don't even use Google to search anything anymore. I use Twitter to search everything.
Wow.
Just what Twitter needs is the right people running it, and probably an activist. It would not shock me at all if Icon got involved, or maybe someone else that was a little bit more tech savvy.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you. Maybe you should. Do you know who Sean Udall is? We have him on the show, and he's been pointing out too. I mean, here's a company that's had. I think they've met or beat Wall Street expectations every single quarter. That's since they've been a public company. And it's just absolutely punished. I mean, the takeover things, it is a data gold mine. They have the relationship with Google. I'm going to add my position, data, Roberto. You talked me into it. Let's move on. You got a couple other stocks on your radar. You mentioned FDA filings. We talked to Christian Tharp about, making those kind of plays. Before you go into the two issues you're looking at, how do you do your research on issues like this with the FDA filings coming up?
I mean, there's tons of sites out there that are going to tell you, when the major FDA events are coming up. And I follow, I love trading biotech stocks. Like, they're probably my absolute favorite sector to trade. So I pretty much know already which ones are coming, with, major product developments that are far along in their pipeline, or where I think it's a catalyst going into those events. So, but even if I didn't know them, I can easily. There's so many websites out there now that'll just, it's like an FDA calendar. You can just go there, see, who's got their events planned, and then I'm just going to hack the charts from there. I'm going to take a look at who's involved in those names, which hedge funds. You asked me earlier about which hedge funds are really hot right now. Broadfin is absolutely just smoking right now. Orbimed is a really good one just in the biotech industry. So I'll look for guys like that, and of course Baker. And if I see events coming up, and then sometimes you'll see Stevie Cohen come into the names. I mean, it's always something interesting going on in biotech. And, of course, they can make for awesome catalyst trades into those events.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple here. You mentioned Biodelivery Sciences International. Do they got something in the pipeline here? Definitely bottom fishing here, Roberto.
Big time. It's obviously not a very very pretty chart at the moment. I'll be the first one to admit that, below all the moving averages. However, if you pull it back on like a 3-year time frame, it has come into a rising trend line. So, I've been kind of, watching it here to see if they're going to, play some games, try to, blow it below that trend line. And, maybe we get a huge volume reversal day. And this is going to be the start of the movement of the catalyst, which is on October 23rd. They're going to be meeting in front of the FDA for their chronic pain treatment. It's called Belbuca. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
It's estimated to do $500 million in annual peak sales. Broadfin, who I mentioned before, is in this name. Stevie Cohen's in this name, and the Bakers are in this name. So you have like 3 of the best hedge funds basically in the world involved in this. 20% of the float is short. So, the potential is huge if it were, to trend into that event.
All right, you just talked me into another purchase. Okay. Do they have options on that or not?
They do. Yep,
Okay,
they absolutely
okay.
do.
I'm sure the spreads are a mile wide. I've traded options in some of those biotechs, but you just got to make a market. Another one,
Yep.
RLYP. Give us a technical setup in it and what's going on fundamentally.
Okay, so I'll touch on the technical setup here for RLYP. This stock's been absolutely destroyed, over the last. Let me just pull this up. I just made a video for my subs on this the other day. I should know everything about this, but I've probably forgotten some of it right now. But it's been destroyed basically since the beginning of the year. It was at 42. It's come all the way down here to 21. What I find interesting about where it's potentially carving out a bottom right here is it's happening right around a previous pivot point from the breakout back in 2014, where it ran from 17 to 42. So kind of the same thing I'm looking at from a psychology standpoint, a chart hacking standpoint. They did actually blow it under that, and again, looking for that volume, looking for this thing to reverse and maybe start that trend. I think theirs is October 21st is their FDA meeting. So, you got time there. The drug is it's for the treatment of hyperkalemia, whatever the heck that is.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it's good. We've been on the line with Roberto Pedone. He's the CEO of Zero Sum Trading. You definitely have to check out his MarketFi product. I think I will after we get off the show. Roberto, great information. You touched on a lot of things. I certainly hope we can have you back on again soon.
Absolutely. I would love to come back on.
And also, I do see you in the chat. Hop in there if you see something with some issues that are moving, or maybe something we've overlooked. I would really appreciate your input.
Absolutely. I never even realized what was going on in that chat, so I'm gonna be a part of that now.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you, Roberto Pedone, CEO of Zero Sum Trading.